So, The Mandalorian Season 2 begins right where the season finale of the first one left off, with the armor telling the Mandalorian that Baby Yoda has the ability to harness the Force. So, in order to find other Jedi, the Mandalorian must find other Mandalorians in order to continue on with his quest. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Michael.
So, Michael, what did you think about Season 2 of The Mandalorian?
Man, there was honestly some of the best Star Wars content we've gotten since the original trilogy, in my opinion. I mean, some stuff even was better than the original trilogy. I mean, it truly was one of the better, storytelling in any form of media, in my opinion. I mean, it just does such a great job of exploring these worlds and showing motives and, really, this season definitely built a really big connection with, the child and the Mandalorian. And it did a fantastic job, in my opinion.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this season too. Like you mentioned, Din Djarin and Baby Yoda, they become closer in this season. This season also ties further into the Star Wars universe than the first season did. It also is not afraid to take elements from not only the other shows like the Clone Wars or Rebels, but some of the expanded universe material, and even some of George Lucas's influences when he was creating A New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first episode, the premiere, Mandalorian goes to Tatooine to find, like I mentioned, other Mandalorians, and it is very much like a Western, that episode.
Yes, very, I agree. It's very Western, kind of like the lone guy comes into the new town, and he has to deal with the town's official, if you want to say it like that.
Yeah, the town has a problem. They're unable to solve it without someone like him, like the lone gunslinger, like in the Westerns. And even the way he just enters the town is very much like Western. Everyone's giving him the look.
Yep.
While he's riding his speeder instead of a horse. And all you needed was a tumbleweed for that part.
Honestly.
To be a Western.
Another influence I noticed too was the old samurai films from Japan.
Mm-hmm. One episode especially.
Yes, that episode was definitely someone even took a screenshot of some of the old movies compared to the scene in question, and it really is like a total reference. I mean, not like a rip-off, but paying homage, if that makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
Which was very cool. I mean, that's where George got some influence, so it was cool they were able to pay it forward almost 40 years later.
Yes, the Kurosawa samurai movies in particular.
Yes.
There's a lot of inspiration from that. Even the Jedi Knights themselves, they're like the knights from medieval times.
Yeah.
And the way they're dressed and the way they fight is like a samurai.
Yeah. It definitely pulled from tons of different inspirations and actual history to kind of make it in a Star Wars way,
Mm-hmm.
So, which is very cool.
Yes, and as the Mandalorian continues on, we get a decent amount of revelations.
Mm-hmm. One thing is you definitely learn a lot more about the child in this season because, in the first season, there really wasn't much, told. Now you actually learn a decent amount of his backstory,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when we first find him, the Mandalorian's tracking Baby Yoda as a bounty, and he's just in some abandoned building.
Right.
And it's where did he come from? Because these Yoda species, they're very rare.
Yeah.
So yeah, we learn more about where Baby Yoda came from. Even his real name, which we'll go into in spoilers. But
yes, when we get to that section. Because it's the first season was showing the backstory of Din.
Yeah, we're learning more about Baby Yoda, and Din Djarin is learning, he himself is learning more about the Jedi.
But I like how they show it he's learning for the first time, because he's never really interacted with Jedi,
Even when they were in their prime, I think during the prequel trilogy, I think there's only 1,000, which in a galaxy where there's I think quadrillions of people and aliens,
right?
It's very rare that you're going to come across a Jedi, even when they were in their prime, let alone now where there's only a handful left.
Right. The thing is, timeline-wise, this show definitely does a great job sticking to the timeline.
Yep, being 5 years after Return of the Jedi, you still have remnants of the Empire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of the lone stormtroopers and stuff, and I like how all their suits in the first season are very dirty and worn, as if they were
Yeah, they haven't been cleaned.
Which is cool.
because they're not the primary force of government, I guess you could say, anymore. So no one will be funding them. So
yeah, that makes sense. Which is cool. I mean, that was a nice. If you noticed it, you noticed it. If you didn't, it wasn't the end of the world.
Yeah, because really, you think about it. At the end of Return of the Jedi, even though it appears a nice little happy ending, all they really did was got rid of the head honchos, being Darth Vader and the Emperor, and whoever else was aboard the Death Star and on Endor.
Yeah, and that's where you kind of become the character of Moff Gideon takes in,
Yeah, I think we have covered everything as much as we can without getting into spoilers. This season has a lot more spoiler material.
Be ready if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, be ready.
A lot to delve into.
You've been warned. So back to the first episode, Michael. The Mandalorian, as we said, he's looking for other Mandalorians, and he gets a lead that there was one on Tatooine, and so he heads to small little town of Mos Pelgos, which is far away from Mos Eisley and Mos Espa, and that's where we find out that there's a guy wearing Boba Fett's armor.
Yeah.
Yeah, what did you think of that?
There was, obviously we all see the rumors and stuff, and seeing, Boba Fett walk in, but obviously we knew it wasn't him because, wearing that long red sleeve.
The armor doesn't fit him at all.
Yeah, it's like, okay, and then he takes it off instantly, and it's just like, this is obviously leading to something bigger.
Yeah, they definitely play it up. When he takes off his helmet, he puts it on the table, and they kind of do a close-up on Boba Fett's helmet, showcasing the dent and everything, and they even have, the music, spices up a little bit, too.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely tell it's not just, a little Easter egg, he's wearing Boba Fett's gear. Yeah. It's it makes it a point to say, this is Boba Fett's gear, something big's gonna sell.
Yeah, so the guy takes off Boba Fett's helmet, and we learn that it is one of the natives of Mos Pelgos. His name is Cobb Vanth, and he's played by Timothy Olyphant.
Who did a good job.
Yeah, which, off the top of my head, the only other thing I've seen him in was actually Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where he played Jim Stacy, playing off of Leonardo DiCaprio's character, Rick Dalton, when they were filming The Western Lantern. But, yeah, I thought Timothy Olyphant did a pretty good job here.
Yeah, I thought so. He was good. Yeah. And the thing is, so the reason why Mando wanted Boba Fett's gear was because he thought it belonged to an actual Mandalorian, and it, didn't belong to someone who wasn't of that race, so they shouldn't have it. So he takes it in the hopes to have it as a piece to find him another Mandalorian.
The natives of Mos Pelgo and the Tusken Raiders have been dealing with a crate dragon, which has been disrupting life around them. And that is actually from Knights of the Old Republic and the Star Wars Bounty Hunter video games, which I played Bounty Hunter, as you guys saw on the channel. So I thought that was interesting. And I love how it was almost like Godzilla level large,
honestly,
dragon. And I love how the natives of Mos Pelgos and the Tusken Raiders had to work together. It was kind of like the Tusken Raiders were really reminding me of Native Americans in a Western in this episode.
Honestly, yeah, that's good. That's fair, yeah.
But yeah, so Mandalorian helps him take on the crate dragon, and Cobb Vanth hands him over the armor, and the Mandalorian's leaving, and that's when we see Boba Fett peering out over at him, and then they hold on the shot for a little bit. You get a good look at his face, and then it's Tamira Morrison as Boba Fett. No questions about it. It's not a clone.
Yep.
Boba Fett.
Because I saw a lot of people online were like, what if it's Captain Rex? I'm like, no, it's Boba Fett. Let's be honest. We all know what it is. Just stop trying to create a swerve or something.
Captain Rex is
he would have been super old by that point.
Yeah, he's a beard.
His
face isn't all scarred either. And why would he be on Tatooine too?
Right. I don't know why people just didn't want to accept it was Boba Fett. They're like, no, it's gonna be. And it's they literally showed his armor. What more do you want? It's Boba Fett.
And you're on Tatooine, for crying out loud. Who else?
Right. That was so surprising to me that people thought it was gonna be a swerve or something. And I'm like, as clear as day, it's Boba Fett.
Yeah.
If people want to create, theories and stuff, I mean, that's cool and all, I like them, but, let's be realistic here.
But it's blatantly obvious. Yeah, I like how he's wearing this, black robe, and then he's got a Tusken Raider club on his back, which was neat. Because it definitely took me a second to recognize him. I was like, wait.
Yeah.
And we roll into the next episode, which in both seasons of The Mandalorian, there's always one that I just don't like.
Mm-hmm.
So the first season was the one where he actually went to Tatooine. I didn't like that.
Yeah.
That episode was just, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
What Toro, I think the guy's name was. I don't know. He trying to be a Han Solo wannabe.
Yeah, honestly.
I was just like, no. And then this season, my least favorite episode was the second episode. He gets to leave that there are Mandalorians on another planet, but he has to take a frog lady to the planet without going to hyperspace so that she can fertilize her eggs with her husband. That episode, I was just like...
It was a weaker episode, yeah, I will agree. But the thing is, I will say this, the weaker episodes of The Mandalorian are still better than, like, the best of some other shows, you know?
Yeah, like, I think it's definitely better than a lot of the best episodes of Star Wars Rebels. I'm not the biggest fan of that show.
But yeah, no, I will say this episode, there's really not much to even talk about. It was just, it was there. I mean, it wasn't bad, but, like, it wasn't good. It was just...
Yeah, it's almost skippable.
Yeah. I will say the child does have some pretty funny and entertaining moments, and that in and of itself is worth the watch.
It was so funny because he was hungry and he keeps eating the eggs.
These unfertilized eggs.
I was like, why is everyone on the internet like flipping out about this? It's just a little comedic moment.
Yeah, people were like saying like, he should do it. This is genocide, and it's just like
he's slaughtering her children.
I think one of the someone made a comment like. Someone who works on The Mandalorian was like, "Oh, eating unfertilized eggs." People, and it was like a picture of like someone eating an omelet or something. Like, yeah, it was very people.
It's one of those stupid internet videos that people get.
I will say one of the funnier moments was when she is boarding the ship and Baby Yoda is like running behind her. It's like something like you barely even notice because like Mando's in the foreground talking. You just see over his shoulder Baby Yoda, the child, is running full speed to get these eggs. That was amazing. Yeah, overall this episode it's there. This episode's more comedic Baby Yoda moments than an actual like compelling like great it's basically the in between point A to point B. It's that middle like okay.
Which I normally like the like little side quests that the Mandalorian goes on, but this one I was just like
it was there. It was okay.
Yeah. I will say that when the spiders are hatching or whatever from the eggs, it did remind me a little bit of the original Alien.
I actually thought the same thing, yes.
I think part of the purpose they served was so that the Razor Crest would be damaged.
Yes, that's actually something.
Entering in the next episode.
Yes, that is something important, yes.
So we head into the next episode where the Razor Crest is so damaged from the last episode that he like had a crash land. Once he arrives, Frog Lady's off to her husband, and the Mandalorian gets another lead that there's another Mandalorian on the ship, but it turns out to be just some Quarren trying to double cross him and kill Baby Yoda.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when we get to see Bo-Katan.
Yeah, from the animated.
Yes, from Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah, Bo-Katan making her debut on live action, very cool.
Mm-hmm. She's played by the same actress that voiced her in both Clone Wars and Rebels, Katie Sackhoff.
And there was a lot of controversy. A lot of people were like, she should look older. She's like in her 40s. But the actress actually is in her 40s. So she's just, I mean, she is that age. It's just people, I don't know what they were expecting a 40-year-old woman to look like, but she is a 40-year-old woman. You know, she's there.
She pretty much looks almost exactly like she does in both of the animated series.
She really does. It was slightly surprising.
Slightly more like her Rebels incarnation, which would make more sense because that's closer in the timeline.
Yes, that was cool.
Yes, and then she's accompanied by two other Mandalorians. One of them actually kind of looks sort of like Jango Fett.
Yeah.
Which I thought was funny. Yeah, it was so neat seeing her because you know that she's like the rightful heir to the throne for Mandalore after her sister died.
Yes.
And that's when the Mandalorian gets shocked that they're not wearing the helmets. And they're like, oh, you're one of them. And he's like, what?
The old kind of style of Mandalorian.
Yes.
And the new.
We find out that he is a Children of the Watch, which I'm assuming means he was part of Death Watch.
Yes.
Because they do show at the season 1 finale that the Mandalorian's rescuing him, and they have the Death Watch symbol on their shoulder pad.
Yes.
And I thought that was interesting.
That was very cool. I agree.
Because knowing how Death Watch is in the Clone Wars, they are a very extreme group.
Yes. So.
But something that doesn't quite line up is in the Clone Wars, Death Watch is often seen with their helmets off too at times.
Yeah, so it's.
I'm willing to forget it.
Yeah, a little plot hole there. So. And another cool thing is Bo-Katan, the one Mandalorian she's accompanied with, she's actually a WWE wrestler, Sasha Banks, so she has some fighting, and they show that off with some of her, she does some wrestling moves, kind of like how Cara does like MMA choke holds and stuff, she does like some wrestling moves, like some body slams and DDTs and stuff like that.
And Gina Carano had been in like Deadpool and a couple other movies, but
yeah. So I'm glad they can like get these like people's fighting styles kind of like, okay, she's a wrestler, obviously she's going to do wrestling moves. This person's an MMA fighter, obviously they're going to do like chokeholds and whatnot. So it's very cool.
Yeah, and I liked how even Bo-Katan's fighting style was pretty much on par with how it was in both of the animated shows.
Yeah, they did a good job with the fighting in this show. There's like subtle things that like you might not realize, but it's there.
Yeah, and I like how I think a lot of the people that watch The Mandalorian are like casual like viewers or whatever. They're not deep, like they probably haven't seen Rebels or Clone Wars, but it doesn't
hinder your experience.
Yeah, it doesn't make them feel like abandoned or like lost or confused.
Yeah, they introduce them in a way that it's like my mom watches The Mandalorian, and my dad does too. My dad knows a little bit about, he knows Star Wars, but obviously he doesn't like watch Rebels and stuff like that. But, he's not like hindered on it. He understands, my mom understands. They do a good way of introducing characters. And another character that they talk about in this episode is Ahsoka.
Mandalorian has to help out Bo-Katan and the other two Mandalorians for a little bit, and she informs him that he should take her to Ahsoka. Obviously, Bo-Katan and Ahsoka have a little bit of history together.
Yes. Which is a good callback, it makes sense for, if someone's going to introduce Mando to Ahsoka, obviously, it's got to be Bo.
Yeah. In the following episode, we learn the Mandalorian returns to Navarro to help out Grief Karga and Cara Dune in order to like wipe out the Imperial base that's there or whatever. That way they can live peacefully on Navarro.
And actually, I believe that episode was directed by Carl Weathers himself.
Yeah, which is interesting.
Yes,
does he? I don't think he's had a lot of director.
Yeah, not like too many directorial roles. Usually just acting, but he did. I mean, this episode was definitely more action based, but I mean that's what you need in a show like this. You need a great action episode. I mean, it did good storytelling, too, but I mean,
yes, and
you need that action,
And at the Imperial base, we get a little more information about why the Empire wants Baby Yoda. So we basically learn that Dr. Pershing, he's like a cloning engineer or whatever. Because Baby Yoda has a high midi-chlorian count, they are harvesting the Force from him to make something. We see some deformed body
creatures,
a bag to tank.
So
yeah, I know there's a lot of people theorizing it's like how Snoke or Palpatine comes about.
Like that, yeah.
I hope they don't go the sequel trilogy route. I kind of want it to be something different.
Yeah, I would rather it be just kind of stay in this time period,
Yeah.
So, but I mean, who knows where it'll lead to. So, but then we move on to the next episode with Ahsoka, and that episode was just amazing.
Yeah.
That was a great episode.
That was the one where it heavily leans into the samurai influences.
Which was very cool. And this episode, like, a lot of these episodes are shot very well and beautiful cinematography and just the looks in the world. But this episode, man, it took it up to, like, level 10. I mean, with Ahsoka running in the fields and stuff at the intro and just the dark, misty environments and stuff, The other episode I liked too, where it was like, this was like you're saying, the water world, where everything, like the saturation's a very heavy blue and it's, but this episode did a great job of being like and it's being controlled as like and it does a good job of making you feel like that way.
Yeah. Another thing that's interesting is how they actually film these episodes of The Mandalorian. I don't know if you've seen like that Disney gallery.
Yes, I love it.
Scenes.
Yes.
They basically have this room called the Volume with a bunch of LED screens around it for the parts where they don't shoot on location. And they are using the Unreal video game engine to do this, which Jon Favreau used a little bit when he did the Jungle Book and Lion King.
Yeah.
But he fully utilizes it here.
I mean, it's super, innovative. I mean, because, like, they talk about it in Disney Gallery, but other just, like, companies have done videos about it, just how innovative it is.
Yeah, like, they use it for commercials, too. I swear I saw something.
They did it for, like, a motorcycle commercial, yeah. I mean, because the way this environment moves with the characters, rather than, like, you know, like in a Marvel movie, they're just fighting around in a green room, versus this, they can actually visually see the moving environment. It's really something innovative, you know.
That was a big hindrance on the prequels, is like either green or blue screen, and all the actors had to imagine a lot of stuff. Here, like they can see the environment.
It's a very visual, and the way, like, too, with Mando is that silver suit, the light reflecting off it, and like the reflections and stuff. Doing that with a green screen, I have to imagine the post editing on it compared to this.
Hours upon hours.
They're saving a lot of time
in post production.
Like, honestly, if they didn't have this and it was in a green room, I don't think Mando's gear would have been silver. Honestly, I think they would have done a different color. Personally.
But yeah, so basically in this episode, there's like an evil magistrate or something like that that's taken over a town, and Mandalorian finds Ahsoka, and we learn that he was at the Jedi Temple during the Clone Wars.
I think Grogu's a good name. I think it's perfectly fine. I think it's good.
Yeah.
But people just were like, I don't want to say necessarily, people that were like more even casual or lesser Star Wars fans are like upset about it. It's just like, no matter what they named him, you weren't probably going to like it because the hype was there. If they would have called him Grogu from episode 2 on, everyone would have been like, oh, it's so good, it's a good, you know, but that's the thing. It wasn't, no matter what they were going to name him, people were going to be not like it. That's kind of one of those things where it's like, if you don't announce a character's name at first, there's all this hype, what's his name, you know? And it's just, so whatever. But I personally, I like it.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I don't really have any issues. It's not as iconic as like a name like Gizmo. Gizmo just has a nicer ring to it, I guess. But he kind of looks like Gizmo, which is fun.
This one definitely has like more of a like heavy like Grogu. It's not as like flowy or anything, but that's how I feel like that species should be, because you know they're they're eating frogs and like living in swamps. It's like shouldn't be a very nice and clean thing. It should be something like like Grogu. But yeah, no, this episode was good. You learned a lot about Grogu. I mean, it was seeing Ahsoka live action, very good.
Yes,
I mean, they did a great
Rosario Dawson did a good job, mainly with the physicality. She was good for the most part with the voice. Just Ashley Eckstein has a little more spunk, I guess. But
and not to mention her voice for over 10 years now.
Yeah, like gosh, since 2008.
Yeah, since the movie and through all of the Clone Wars and stuff, you get used to her. And I understand the people that weren't too happy about it, but the thing is, it's like, do you really want to have a live action person than a voice actor for a character that was in one episode, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's just, I get it. And not to mention, too, the voice actress even gave her blessings and completely understood. But no, Ahsoka, live action first appearance. Yeah. The Mandalorian is the perfect show, in my opinion, for her to make her debut.
Yep, and she's getting her own show, too.
Yes, one of 3 spin-off shows.
Yeah. Which before we got to the finale, we only thought there were 2.
Yeah, but sure enough, that post-credit scene, which we will talk about in a few.
And we also learned that Baby Yoda, kind of like Anakin, actually, he has a little bit of the dark side of him. And basically, because he has an attachment to Din Djarin, kind of like Anakin when he was afraid to lose his mom. Mm-hmm. And Yoda even himself says in the Phantom Menace,
fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. I sense much fear in you.
So Baby Yoda has that fear in him.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting. And Ahsoka, knowing Anakin, knows where that can lead.
Yeah.
And another thing I liked in this episode, the Magistrate has like a little right-hand man named Wang, and he's played by Michael Biehn.
Yeah.
And Michael Biehn, I think he's one of those like really underrated actors. He is known for playing Kyle Reese in The Terminator and playing Corporal Hicks in Aliens. Mm-hmm. But I think they're mainly referencing, which I haven't seen it, his role as Johnny Ringo in Tombstone.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people talking about that.
I thought it was cool to see him in that. But yeah, which they've kind of done that before in The Mandalorian, where they're basically doing a Tarantino where you cast an actor who hasn't really acted in a while. Like they had Mark Boone in the first season.
Gives people a new light, which is cool.
Yeah. And it was interesting, while Din Djarin is fighting Lang, it's like a Western quick draw, but then on the other side of the building, it's like a samurai fight with Ahsoka and like the magistrate, which was pretty cool. And then we hear that Ahsoka is after Grand Admiral Thrawn, which was neat.
Yeah.
And then we're told that Ahsoka is unable to train Baby Yoda, and that Din Djarin must take him to Tython and put him on top of the Seeing Stone at the top of the mountain.
Which is kind of interesting that Ahsoka just didn't want to take on that role, because it was interesting because a lot of people were saying the comparisons of how she saw a lot of possible like rage, I believe she said, and how she knew Anakin, which
she knows where that can lead, and she's also not a Jedi anymore.
Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, it was a great episode, one of my favorite of the season, and then having Ahsoka live action. But then we move on to the next episode, and this is where like the Carl Weathers action episode was great, but this one just boom.
Yes. So surprisingly, there's no side quest immediately after this, and Mandalorian heads straight to Tython. So we get there, and there's like a little stone at the top of the mountain, as the Mandalorian sees. Puts Baby Yoda on there. That's funny. This is like this giant force field that comes around Baby Yoda. And then all of a sudden, almost out of nowhere, Slave 1 starts flying in.
Yep.
And that's where we find out that Boba Fett has been tracking Mandalorian since the premiere, and he's accompanied by Fennec Shand, or however you pronounce her name.
And she was in the first season as well.
Yes, and we saw at the end of that episode that someone was coming up to her. We didn't know who, and now we know it's Boba Fett, which they implied a little bit. There's like a little spur in his steps.
Yeah.
Which there's only one character that has like that kind of spur when they walk.
Yeah, which I will say this though, I love like just how Boba first interacts with Mando, on how Mando has no idea who this guy is, and he's like, I want the armor. He goes, if you want my armor, you're gonna have to peel it off my dead body. He goes, no, I want my armor. And it's like, and just seeing Boba Fett, just because if you look at the original trilogy, Boba Fett's in there for what, 5 minutes, like within 3 movies.
I think it's like ended up it's like 7 minutes,
and it's like he has like 4 lines that It's like this episode was great just because it was like you finally saw Boba in action. Granted, if you read the books, the comics, the expanded universe, obviously there's tons of great Boba Fett things, but seeing it live action for the first time was, seeing something in a comic book is awesome, and I love comics, but nothing beats live action. And man, Boba Fett this was what he deserved, and it was so great for the character. And just when he first puts the armor back on, and it's just that stuff. You just can't even you can't make it any better, in my opinion.
Yes. First of all, I recognize that voice right when he starts talking. It's Tamir Morrison.
Yep.
He has a very distinct voice. So.
And he actually does a quote from Django.
I'm a simple man making his way through the galaxy, like my father before me.
Which I thought was a cool little callback.
Yeah, it's like a homage to that.
I'm just a simple man trying to make my way in the universe.
Yeah, Django yet again is another character, just like Boba. So awesome in all these comics and the Bounty Hunter video game. But in the movie, it's like, come on, we need
Yeah, he's given slightly more than Boba Fett, I will say. But even then.
Yeah, like his fight with Obi-Wan. The thing is, I love Boba Fett. He's one of my favorite characters. Django, I always thought was just maybe because we actually saw him in action versus Boba, we didn't. But man, those double blasters, blue and silver gear, he is such a cool guy.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I actually thought at least his armor looked cooler than Boba Fett's. So
I agree.
To me, I thought it did.
Yeah, because that blue and silver as opposed to Boba's green
he looks
red.
Yeah, Boba Fett's is more torn down, which we actually learned it's the same armor set. Boba Fett just repainted it.
But yeah, this episode, total love letter to Boba Fett fans who have been waiting. And I'm glad that this episode got to come out before the unfortunate passing of the original actor of Boba Fett. He got to see his person he played all these years later, get to a new life.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and then we also learned that, the hot debate, we learned that Jango Fett was a Mandalorian.
Yes.
So Boba Fett, we get to see him in action, and then after Baby Yoda is done, communing with the Force to reach out to another Jedi, he gets captured
Yeah.
by Dark Troopers, which I think they'd only appeared in a video game.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of cool seeing them. I think the CGI could have been a little bit better.
Yeah, and the CGI wasn't the greatest, but yeah, the child's captured, so now they gotta assemble a crew to go get him. Boba Fett's on board because they made a deal.
Oh yeah, they have to find the whereabouts of the ship, so they get Bill Burr's character Mayfield.
Mayfield comes back, and man, this episode really made Mayfield like such a great character. I mean, the first season you saw him, and he was funny because it's Bill Burr and he's a comedian, and it's so funny. He talked crap on Star Wars for like years, and now he's in it. And then to come back, and he has a very, I mean, just when like the guy's talking about, you know, the planet, you know, you could see him getting visually upset and just shoot him. I mean, that was great, man. I mean, for a guy who hated Star Wars 5 years ago is now, I mean, that scene alone was better than The Last Jedi, in my opinion.
Oh, yes. So they're going to hack into the Imperial database or whatever to get the coordinates to Moff Gideon's ship. And I love how when they're debating on who should go inside, Boba Fett's like,
Fett? Let's just say they might recognize my face.
Yes, imagine Boba Fett walking in there. They'd be like, what? Like,
yeah. So Din Djarin and Mayfield go in, and then we get a cool sequence in there where he takes off his helmet.
yes, and that shows how much he truly, you know, does care about the child. He's willing to do that. So, and it was cool. Mayfield, like, even like during the episode, was making fun of him, asking to see his face and stuff. And then he takes the helmet off and he just plays it off and says, "Hey, I didn't see it. No worries." And then eventually, after, you know, they do this, they decide to let Mayfield just, you know, go scot-free for what he did, which is, you know.
And then I love how when they escape, they get in the Slave One, and then Slave One goes up, and the seismic charge comes out, and I was like, oh gosh.
Yep.
And then we hear that amazing sound effect. I love that thing.
Yeah. And then it ends off with Mando sending a message to Moff Gideon using some of the quotes that he said about how the child means more to him than he'll ever know, and just really making it full circle, really getting you excited for that season finale.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And then we get to the finale.
Man.
For only being like 45 minutes, there's a lot that happens in this episode.
This episode, man, I'll tell you.
Yeah, so we start out with Slave One tracking down the Imperial shuttle with Dr. Pershing in it.
Mm-hmm.
We get some cool banner between two Imperials and Cardoon.
Yep.
Then we touch down on a planet, and you see Bo-Katan's ship outside. Boba Fett and Din Djarin go into a bar to meet with Bo-Katan and the one Mandalorian played by Sasha Banks. Which I was like, where's the other guy? The other guy that looks kind of like Boba Fett.
Yeah, that was
kind of like, where was he at? Just
kind of
off duty that day?
I guess. So they had some banner. But Boba, oh my god, he had so many good lines here.
Oh my gosh, yes. And immediately, Bo-Katan and Boba Fett get in an argument.
You are not a Mandalorian.
Never said I was.
And then, no, my favorite though was,
You are a clone. I've heard your voice thousands of times.
Mine might be the last one you hear.
that is so good. That was so good. You can't get any better than that. So, a little fight ensues, and we see some Sasha Banks does some, like a wrestling, like a DDT. Where usually they would do it like off the turnbuckle, but she did it off like a pillar in like the restaurant that they were in, the bar.
Yeah, the only thing that was a little off was they use the flamethrowers against each other, but they cancel each other out, which I was like, okay. But yeah. Regardless, it was a cool effect.
But yeah, it was a little fight scene that lasted like 10 seconds. That was pretty cool. Shows how hot-headed some Mandalorians can be. That redesign, though, I love it. I love him. Like the old grizzled vet.
Yeah, now he's got like the black robe underneath, and then his armor's all repainted now.
Yeah. So they recruit Bo and the other Mandalorians, and they go on to kind of do like this fake out where it looks like they
like
stole the ship.
Imperial shuttle's being chased by the Slave One, which I thought was cool.
Yeah.
And then everyone's pretty much on the Imperial shuttle except for Boba Fett.
Because he gets away before, because they send out TIE fighters, and he like escapes.
Yep, he's just there to distract the Empire. And then he immediately jumps to hyperspace. So we get some cool hallway action scenes.
Yeah, a lot of fighting. I mean, they are just plowing through these stormtroopers.
Yeah, everyone is plowing through the stormtroopers, except for the Mandalorian. He's kind of going alone to Baby Yoda.
Yeah, he also has the thing to lock in the droid Death Troopers.
The Dark Troopers, yeah.
Dark Troopers, yes, Dark Troopers.
Yes, he has the Beskar spear.
And they really show how strong these Death Troopers are, because, you know, he goes and locks the door, but one manages to get out.
Yeah, they're like T-800 level strong.
I mean, it's an even fight, honestly, if anything. I mean, Mando kind of uses his brains, if anything, because a droid is just a robot, so he kind of has to outwit him, but strength-wise. And they have like this like interesting remix to like a Star Wars song, but it kind of sounds like a robotic like rap beat, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So it fit the characters, you know, these evil, menacing droids, and it has this undertone of like this heavy bass, robotic boom, like Star Wars remix, like a beat someone would rap over, you know.
I love the music for that Mandalorian.
Yeah, very
I could
good.
get into a whole discussion just about the music. Right now.
Yes. So he ends up releasing all of the Death Troopers into space, like through an opening.
Mm-hmm. Clears that out. Goes to the cell where Baby Yoda's at. And right when the door opens, you see Moff Gideon with a darksaber right above Baby Yoda's head. And then he's playing mind games with the Mandalorian.
And Mando literally is just like, okay, can I just have the kid? I don't care. Like,
yeah.
It is just so, I love that.
Oh yeah, he's giving all this expository dialogue about the
Darksaber and Mando, the Mandalorian planet. And the thing is, Mando always makes it a point to, like, when you go off on a deal, you always fulfill. But this was the only time he was willing to, you know, say, kind of like screw Bo-Katan out of what he agreed with her, you know, get Moff Gideon the Darksaber. He was willing just to take the kid and leave, I think, you know.
Yeah, I love how like Moff Gideon's playing mind games with him in that moment. And then they get in a fight scene where Mandalorian uses the Beskar spear to fight.
Yeah. Honestly, I was surprised that Mando turned his back on Moff Gideon. Like, that surprised me. I was like, you don't turn your back on someone, you know.
Yeah, like.
But Mando's so quick-witted, he like, the second like he went to swing, he just, you know, jump into battle.
Yeah, and it's also cool that his jetpack's also Beskar too.
Yes. So he beats Moff Gideon in the fight.
And then he brings him into control deck or whatever you want to call it.
He shares the news about how the Darksaber works.
Yeah, well, Bo-Katan just stares at the Mandalorian like all shocked.
But he doesn't know, that's the thing. He doesn't know about the lineage and the story to the Darksaber. Versus she does.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, you have to challenge her to an actual battle.
You have to fight her in ritual combat, which, for those who have seen the Clone Wars, it's a fight to the death.
Yeah, so that's like something he did as like a kind of like get one over on Mando. But Mando's like, I yield or whatever. Bo-Katan's like, you can see the shock in her face that he doesn't understand. But then eventually, I mean, they have to not worry about the Darksaber because the Death Troopers happen to come back. They fly up.
Mm-hmm. And they make their way to the control deck. They seal the door shut, and they're basically stalling till they get in there. And it kind of seems like all hope is lost.
Yeah.
And then, almost out of nowhere, an X-Wing comes out. And if you look closely, you might see a familiar R2 unit on the X-Wing.
Yeah.
But
and it's funny how, like, Kara, that said, like, oh, great, one X-Wing. Oh, great, here we go. And sure enough, I mean, you see a lightsaber, a cloak. At first, you're like, no way.
Right when they cut off the monitor and they show that the green lightsaber and the black glove, I was like, this is Luke Skywalker.
At first, I
questions
thought
about it.
like it was Ahsoka at first, but like you said, if you're paying very close attention, you'll notice R2. But I wasn't super like glued in on my TV, so at first I'm like, it's Ahsoka because they show them on the monitor, and the monitor is black and white, so you can't see that it's a green lightsaber.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, you see that green, you see the hand, and I just lost it. Because there had been a lot of rumors about Luke Skywalker being in the show and all this.
That's another thing is Baby Yoda's like force communing to reach out for another Jedi. As Ahsoka says, there aren't many Jedi left, so I was kind of like going in my head, well, there's Luke, but I don't think they're going to do that. It would be like too obvious.
Yeah.
Everyone online keeps going on about Mace Windu. I know Samuel Jackson wants to come back. And then there's Ezra Bridger.
I've heard that rumor. And then I saw another one.
And then Cal Kestis from Jedi Fallen Order.
Yep, that's what I was going to say, Fallen Order. A lot of people thought it was going to be him.
Those were the main ones.
And the thing is, it's like, no disrespect to those characters by any means. But this whole season has been leading up to he needs to get back with a Jedi. Luke Skywalker. That was the only Jedi that made sense to me. This is Mando Season 2. This is the biggest show going right now.
And
everyone's watching it. And it makes sense.
Because after Return of the Jedi, his main focus is rebuilding the Jedi Order.
And this scene, man, oh my god. Everyone online was joking about how, like, Mark Hamill wasn't a big fan of the new trilogy of how he was portrayed. In this 10-minute scene of him plowing through these Death Troopers just really brought back Luke Skywalker, you know?
Yeah. And then I actually, it was funny, I was messaging you to get on to do this, and then when I went on Instagram, I saw, it was Mark Hamill. It was like a quote from his Twitter account. I was like, seen anything good on TV?
On TV today? Yeah. Dude, oh, Mark Hamill, that was good.
And then a lot of people were questioning the CGI.
Yeah.
It's not the best digital de-aging. I would have to say, regardless of what you think about the movie, Terminator Dark Fate has the most phenomenal digitally de-aging I've ever seen in a movie. I was like stunned by that. This is alright, but this is also on a TV budget.
Because they did, like, you know, they had in Rogue One, they had Leia and, they had one more, Peter Cushing's character.
Tarkin.
Yes. You know, that was awesome and stuff, but you just have to, like, kind of suspend your disbelief. The thing is, if you want to criticize, oh, the CGI looks crappy, okay, who cares? Yeah. It's Mandalorian and Luke Skywalker, face to face.
It has improved since Rogue One.
It does look a lot better than Rogue One. Leia in Rogue One kind of looked like a big head, like, her head looked way too big. The thing is, too, it's like, I'm willing to, you know,
suspend my disbelief
just for a minute, just to, like, see these classic characters. Because unfortunately, we don't have a time machine. We can't go back to get Carrie Fisher from 1970 to be in Rogue One. We can't get Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, we can't put Mark Hamill in a machine.
Yeah, and I'm
1983.
And as much as, like, you know, no disrespect to Mark Hamill, he's old. He can't play Luke Skywalker from Return of the Jedi, like, without this. And I'm on board with it, and I'm perfectly fine with it.
It was just around the lip area. That was the only part that looked off.
Yeah, a little bit wonky, but I mean, like I said, man.
Yes, it's kind of like the Darth Vader Rogue One moment.
Yeah, like, this is Luke Skywalker being in The Mandalorian. It was a moment.
What really impressed me, though, was his voice. It sounded exactly how it does in the original trilogy.
He wants your permission. He is strong with the Force.
Yes, it did. It did.
I was like, how did they do that? I kept wondering if it was like they used the computer somehow, or since Mark Hamill is also a well-known voice actor, if he somehow make his voice sound younger.
Or maybe even like if he attempted to make his voice sound younger, and then like they did some pitching in like post-production or something. Yeah. Obviously, this led up to the big moment of Grogu going with Luke Skywalker, and it was, man, get your tissues out. I mean, you know, it's just, these two have such a great chemistry, and seeing them, you know, obviously there's a season 3, I guarantee you. They're going to reunite somehow.
There is. It's actually not coming till December of 2021. I'm not a guy that tears up that often, but this actually got me to tear up a little bit.
And he's taken off the helmet.
It's the first time Baby Yoda sees his face or whatever.
Yeah.
Also, the first time that Din Djarin pretty much chooses to take his mask off for another living creature. Yeah, the other 2 times, the first time he was injured, and the other one he was
gonna blow his
kind of like forced to in order to like get the information needed.
Yeah, and not to mention he was in a room full of people who knew that it was him. But one thing I noticed, if you remember when his ship gets destroyed, he specifically goes out and finds the little ball that he loves playing with. Mm-hmm. And if you notice, he never gave it to him. So I wouldn't be surprised if season 3, that's something that, like...
And he promises him that he'll see each other again. I hope it's not like an Anakin thing where Baby Yoda dies. You know, like Anakin's like...
I will come back and free you, Mom. I promise.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, that just makes me wonder also, because we know where Luke's rebuilding of the Jedi Order goes. It goes south, kind of like Anakin all over again with Kylo Ren.
Yes. And everyone was like commenting like, oh, I wonder if Ben kills Grogu. It's like, okay, Ben's currently 5 years old right now. Like,
yeah.
Like, we don't need to worry about that right now. And the thing is, too, is a lot of people are like, they didn't need to, you know, inject the Skywalkers into this, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, we have like 10 new shows coming to Disney Plus. I guarantee you there will be plenty that won't have the Skywalkers. This is The Mandalorian. It made sense.
Yes, as long as it's like done well. Like, I think like the perfect example to bring up would be is how they brought Darth Maul back versus how they brought the Emperor back.
Yes, Darth Maul. They explained it. It had a reasoning. He was in the cartoons, build up his story.
they gave him much more depth. I mean, if you just judge him from Phantom Menace, that guy was thick.
Yeah, honestly.
And versus the Emperor and Rise of Skywalker, that was just so overly convoluted and stupid.
It was fan service. It was like, let's make it so confusing, but fans will be like, yay, the Emperor's back.
And J.J. Abrams was just pulling cards out of a hat.
Yeah, honestly. But yeah, this episode, 10 out of 10, a true masterpiece. I don't think they could have done it any better. I wouldn't have changed anything.
And that's the thing that's interesting, because right now, season 3 could go pretty much anywhere. I have some theories of where they could go. Like, one of the things that could happen is the Mandalorian and Bo-Katan reclaim Mandalore, or we could just see Mandalorian going back to just regular old bounty hunting, doing who knows what.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, there's so much going into season 3. Like, season 1, the way it ended, it was like, okay, we know what's going to happen in season 2.
Yeah.
Season 2 to season 3, man, there's like 100 different options. And it's great. It's a good cliffhanger. It's something to look forward to season 3.
And then we get to the end credit scene.
Oh boy, this end credit scene. Well, so Boba Fett, like we said, hyperspace out of there.
And
so
we go to Tatooine.
Yep.
And we get a dolly shot that goes from the Twin Suns to Jabba's palace.
Yep.
It's Jabba's palace, and we find out that Bib Fortuna has pretty much occupied Jabba's throne, I guess.
Yeah, like the kind of like the king of like this underground seedy like.
And he's gained a lot of weight too, which is funny.
He looks like honestly like he's on his way to be Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah. And then we get Fennec Shand just killing everyone.
Clear house. Like you see the shadow of Boba Fett and you're like, oh my god. Like I thought this was gonna be like a post-credit scene, like Boba just getting his revenge.
Oh yeah. Bib Fortuna's like, Boba, I thought you were dead. I heard the rumors you were alive.
Yeah. And Boba's just standing there, just.
It's kind of like a mafia thing almost.
Yep. And then Boba shoots him.
Yeah.
Gets up there. He sits on the throne. It's like a money shot. Like it should be on a poster. It should be on a T-shirt.
Doesn't even say anything.
Screen goes to black. Book of Boba, December 2021.
Yeah. Another show. Which I had heard rumors that they were already like filming a Boba Fett show, and then then at the Disney Investor Day, I was like, they didn't announce one, so I was like, oh, but I guess those were just rumors. It turns out they're true.
I figured like there was one of two things when they didn't announce it. A, it was just rumors being rumors, or B, they didn't want to announce the show because it would mess something up with the Mandalorian's ending. Like, there's going to be a reason. With the Investors Days, like, some of the stuff was very brief, but, like, we at least got, like, we know who's directing.
Yeah, we know with the other two shows tied to the Mandalorian, we know that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are doing those.
Ahsoka and Rangers of the New Republic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, too, is, like, I want to talk about is a lot of people on that Investor Day. I saw tons of people were hyped. I loved it. I was hyped. How can you not be?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, there was so much announced at that Investor Day.
Yeah.
I was just having a hard time, like, keeping track of it.
It was insane. And not even just Star Wars, Marvel, Pixar. I mean, they're doing an Aliens TV show on FX. Like, what? Yeah, so, but overall, man, Mando Season 2, I have to say, bravo. Even at its lowest points, it was still better than some shows' highest points, in my opinion. I mean, this show truly feels like love of Star Wars is going into it. Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, they know what they're doing. I mean, you have a show that has Ahsoka, Bo-Katan, and Luke Skywalker all in it, along with new characters, classic characters, characters that didn't get their due, like Boba Fett. It's just all coming together for this just extravaganza of Star Wars.
Yeah, so, Michael, would you recommend Season 2 of The Mandalorian?
Oh, absolutely. I would recommend it. I even recommend the show to non-Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
I wouldn't tell, like, a Star Wars fan, hey, you should watch the Clone Wars. But Mandalorian, you should. And, like, would I recommend, some of these upcoming shows to people? And, like, I wouldn't tell my friends that don't care about Star Wars, yo, you should check out Andor. Like, no.
Yeah, for people that don't care about Star Wars, that's the cool thing about The Mandalorian. You don't have to watch the movies or anything.
Yes.
You can just
this is a show that is so good. The first season, realistically, if you changed, like, the child to some other alien-looking thing and stripped Star Wars away from it, it wouldn't even seem Star Wars, Obviously, Season 2 with Jedis and all that. No.
Yeah, like, the first season was very much the space western
Yes,
think.
very.
This season's been more like
Star
integrated
Wars.
with the Star Wars universe.
And I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I don't. People are so mad that they're injecting Star Wars into Star Wars, and it's like, it's fine. And the thing is, it's not like they're going into some crazy in-depth like expanded universe. You have to be a diehard fan. Who on this
it's
earth
not like,
doesn't know who Luke Skywalker is?
Yeah, it's not like in the Clone Wars there was that Mortis arc where you're getting deep into the mythology of the Force, like you have the father, the son, and the daughter, like that whole arc.
Yeah. Like the thing is here, it's like you can watch The Mandalorian and not know who Ahsoka Tano is or Bo-Katan, and you understand their character. So it's like they did a perfectly fine job in not alienating the casual viewers.
But they're also pleasing the diehard fans.
Yep, and that's how you got to do it. In my opinion. Dave and John, man, these two, I've always been a fan of Jon Favreau. He's done so much stuff as a writer, producer, director, or actor.
Mm-hmm.
No one understands Star Wars, I think, more than Dave Filoni.
Yes, two of them.
They're a powerhouse.
They're quite a pair. Yeah, so I think we pretty much covered everything for Mandalorian Season 2.
Yep, and we gotta wait a whole year to see what happens.
Yep, but hey, we have the Bad Batch.
We have the Bad Batch, and we have Disney Gallery, The Mandalorian Season 2,
Yeah.
so it'll be interesting to hear some of the behind the scenes, because I thoroughly love to see that.
All right,
All
that's
right.
a wrap.